What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. So I'm right next to a patch or a stand of Dogbane. It's a weed technically, but it's at least in this area and surrounding areas, it's one of the best natural cordages. So we're going to sustainably harvest some of it. You don't want to harvest all of it, kind of thing. We're just going to go at the base, clip it off, and it's quite a long patch here. I'll show you. It goes all along this section, so there's probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 feet of it along this river, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to be using is just a pair of steel snips you can use for landscaping. They don't cost too much. And a pair of gloves. Just a no-name kind of brand. Well, some store-bought brand, but it don't matter. So when you're harvesting, as far as sustainability goes, like this stuff has already dropped its seed pods and everything. So it's not going to hurt to clear, technically if you wanted to clear a whole section out, but since this is a more of a wilderness area, I'm not going to just take the whole thing, which would be rude for anybody else who wants to harvest as well. So super simple. The stuff you can pretty much break off. You can use a knife, you can use snips, it don't really matter. There's two main stuff in this stand right here. There's an older stem and newer stems from this last season. So these two red ones right here are the newer ones from this last season, and this white one is most likely from last season. You can still use it. It's not as good. Sometimes they're a little too far gone, but I'll show you how to process it down in a minute to check. Super simple. Just take the ends with your glove, run it off, and you can break the tips off. So you're left with more of a cleaner end and you're not playing around with all the fuzzy bits up there. So you can see once you harvest it, you got all this crap on it. So you'll just take your glove and you'll slide it down. And that'll take care of most of that. And you can clean it up when you're breaking it down farther. Now that I got a little bit from this section, I will move on to another and I'll thin it out slightly as well. We're on the side of a slope here. This stuff likes to grow near the water in ditches and places like that. So you clip a few. It's that easy to clean up. You want to be careful when you're digging around in here because you can poke your eye pretty easy. They clean up slightly better if you only do a couple at a time. So something I noticed particularly about this stand of Dogbane as well is that there are little critters running in and around this grass line and in and out of here. So if you were to take all of it, it wouldn't necessarily hurt the patch from coming back as long as all of the seed pods have dropped and everything, but it might ruin the winter home for some of the animals that like to crawl through them. I've seen like a stoat or a ferret or some kind of weasel or something along the banks here, and I've seen a bunch of field mice and stuff like that. So it does provide a natural habitat. So that's another reason you wouldn't want to over harvest. So just picking and choosing a little section here and there, thinning it out in certain spots, maybe where it's too thick. If you think about it from like a landscaping perspective or whatever, but if it's next to a ditch or a roadside or something like that, it probably is not a big deal. But in a more natural area like this, it provides homes for birds probably, and maybe even food to certain animals. So just keep that in mind when you're out harvesting. It's not to take all the resources from one area if possible. So I wanted to share a couple more things about this stand of dogwood here that I found. Right in here, there's a bunch of holes in the ground that can go pretty deep. And they're like a little trench throughout here, right? Sometimes that could be animal dens and stuff like that, but we're right next to the water. And one of the things here is that this stand is actually helping this section of, we have a bend coming around the river right here, swooping in and turning around. This is helping the bank to stop eroding, as well as being a home for animals and a few other things. So I've harvested what I'm gonna harvest today, I think. Another thing I wanted to show you guys is when you're harvesting, another part of sustainability is, we'll come in here and I'll show you how to cut one of these. Whatever the direction that is most often gonna be looked at by humans, cut in the opposite direction. So let's say people are gonna be looking and passing by on this side. If you make a cut, like obviously low enough to the ground that so it won't be noticed, but if you make a cut at this angle in here, like that, what's going to be left on that side is not white, but on this side it is white, so it's a lot more noticeable, especially when you're cutting like thickets of trees and stuff like that. But I just wanted to share that tip with you, to slice it off at an angle that is not, like in this section it's crowded by other things and you want to be able to see it anyway. But if you were to cut this the other direction, it is possible for other people to see it. It's just kind of a thing that helps disguise harvesting a little bit in a wilderness area. Okay guys, so I wanted to show you a couple of differences between older stems and newer stems. The red here, these two, versus these white ones, that's older versus newer. They have kind of a waxy stuff throughout this plant. It's kind of an interesting thing. But I'm going to show you how to break this down real quick. So you're going to squeeze it from two sides and it should break into about 4 pieces. Sometimes this works out a little bit better inside after you've dried it out a little bit. Depends if it's just rained. But you can see it's broken into 2 pieces there, all the way around. So you get a split of 4 pieces. And then you're gonna break it in 2 like that, all the way down. Okay, and then you could just leave it at the 2, or you could split that down, depends on how easy you find this process. But we're gonna get it started. What we're gonna do is gonna break off the tips there and just peel them off, and it leaves you this waxy layer. Not waxy, but string-like layer. And they do have kind of a bit of a waxiness to them. So this is a really easy process. I'll show you this once out here, and then once indoors might be a little bit easier. So you break it this way, like that, and then you can peel it off. But you can also come back slightly and peel this way, and there's hairs, those really, really fine little hairs right there. If you just tear this off completely, it'll tear those really, really fine hairs off that are right there. If you tear those hairs off, your cord's just going to be slightly a little bit less weak. So it's not a huge deal, but when you're when you're using this stuff, you might as well go all out, right? So it's going to be peel right here. You can peel it like that, and then break it off like that, and you'll leave those little fibers. So peel, and you'll see that some of these fibers get stuck behind. You want to try to save those if you can, and then snap, and then you can break it off that way, and you can see we're leaving those stringy bits behind. So peel, and you can see some of those fibers get left behind. So kind of tease those off. Now you can get really, really fast doing this process. See, sometimes it's hard to get all of them. But once you get into it, it becomes kind of second nature, and you can go through this rather quickly. All right, I'll show you that once again indoors, so I can get a better camera view and angle. So there you go. When you're done, you should be left with something that looks like this. Now this came from 2 of those pieces, so you got 2 of those pieces. Now you can rough this stuff up in your hands, and eventually you can get this kind of papery like stuff to fall out a little bit, or you can twist it into rope and then roll it, and that'll break some of this stuff up and make it a little bit finer, because you can see obviously there's these inner fibers that are really fine, and if you break down this particular layer more so, it'll be a finer end product. All right, y'all, we're back inside where it's warm. Before I show you real quick on how to process this down again inside, this is what a finished product can look like. This is rope that I made, and quite a bit of it, probably from about, I think all this together was probably from about 10, 15 canes maybe. But it's super strong. Once it gets old, it can get a little brittle. You can wax this. I think this one has been waxed, as well as wet it back down. Wetting it down will help it retain some strength. Here is like a little fishing lure gouge hook I made from it, as well as this one. And this one, I even tapered down the line super fine to the end of the gouge there, and then made it thicker going up to the hand or stick that it could be attached on. So those are just a couple of examples. So you're going to offset it. That way you can splice in a piece easy. We'll offset it really far down here. You can comb this stuff out to make it even finer and make the product look good in the end. This rope here, once I twisted it, I ended up working a lot in my hands, and a lot of the fibery like husk from this stuff kind of fell out of it. This is a good winter project to do, and just sit down and kind of get out of the way. So we got 2 pieces here, offset, and we're gonna twist a bunch. I'm going to rake my hands through it a couple of times with my fingernail, just to get an initial removal of some of that husky fibery stuff, and twist it around. That'll help that initial curl get started. So once you got that initial curl, just give it a bit of a twist, and then you've locked it in place. All right, once you've locked that in place, depending which way you went with your lock will depend on which way you twist, because you can either twist this way and then take the second one here and then pull back, which is how this one's going to go. But if you let it twist the other direction, you could do the opposite of that, where you can twist this way or sorry, let me think here. Twist, pull, twist, pull. So the other one would be to twist the opposite direction and rotate it that way. So you can do that as well. Me being right-handed, this one just works out better for me. So we got the end of the rope there, so it's gonna be twist, and then grab that second one, and then pull back. And as I'm going, I'm scooting my hand up, my left hand up, and I'm twisting. So this will all be reversed if you're left-handed, and twisting this right here. And then I'll pinch, then I'll twist, grab that second one, pull back, twist with this hand. A lot of people on the internet I see forget this motion over here, which will get this a lot finer. So twist, grab that second one, pull back, twist with this hand. You don't need to, like, it'll automatically have some spring back there, but that's okay. And then pinch, twist, pinch, pull back, twist, pinch, pull back, twist. So it goes pretty quick once you get used to the process. All right, so the second part is how to splice in another piece. So we did 2, so we're gonna do 2 more. You're gonna offset it again. Once you offset it, you're going to take the crook of that offset, this little piece here. You're gonna flatten that down, pinch it down as much as possible, and you're gonna spread this apart, and you're gonna set that up in here, like that. Now you want the long end to go with the short end, and the short end to go with the long end. And it's gonna look a little messy for a second as you're doing this. So we have a long end now extending that short end, and what was the long end, and then the long end of this one extending this short end. And these can get tripped up pretty easy, so you wanna make sure you separate them properly. And then you're just gonna do the exact same process. You're gonna twist really good, especially at that beginning part. So just give it a few twists, and then grab that next section, pull back, twist, 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 pull back. Now you will sometimes get little tags sticking out here. In the cleanup process, you can cut those off, or you could burn them off, or you could just leave them depending on your application. The finer you work that in right there to this fiber will not show too much of this. Once it's in here, it's in there pretty good, and I've not had a problem clipping them off or snipping them off with some scissors. And you just keep doing that process. Twist, take that second one, pull back. You'll have a bit of a thicker line in those parts, and it's pretty much impossible to avoid. So what you can do to avoid that, since we took 2 double strands, so we have actually 4 strands, and we only have, so this is technically 8 strands, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And this was 4 strands. So you can actually just splice in one piece if you want to keep your rope this diameter. So no matter what, generally speaking, a lot of the times it's going to start out pretty small. So in your process of making this, you can figure out how to play around with that. To me, it doesn't really matter at this beginning part. It actually is easier to use to tie. So I keep it small and then gradually get bigger into the rope. But it has other applications as well for like fishing line and stuff like that, keeping this tip smaller. All right, so that's the process, guys. I hope you have fun doing it. Remember, harvest sustainably. Cheers.